Have you ever heard about a man called Pablo Picasso? You're probably familiar with his work, but how much do you know about him? About Cubism, the art movement that he invented with his friend and fellow artist George Braque. This is the story of the great movement of Picasso. Pablo Picasso, known as one of the greatest and most influential artists of the 20th century, he is the creator of the Cubism, the artistic movement which employs geometric shapes in the depiction of human and other forms. He was a Spanish painter, sculptor, printmaker, ceramist, and theatre designer who spent most of his adult life in France. Early on, Picasso showed great skill for the arts, painting a naturalistic style through his childhood and adolescence. Without him, modern art would be very different. Picasso's work is often categorized into periods such as the Blue Period, the Rose Period, the African Influence Period, the Analytic Cubism, and the Static Cubism. Much of Picasso's work from the late 1910s and early 1920s is in a neoclassical style, and his work from the mid-1920s frequently has realist elements. Picasso was born on 25 October 1881 in the city of Malaga in southern Spain. He was raised as a Catholic, but in his later life, he would declare himself as an atheist. Picasso's father, who was also a well-known artist, started teaching him on how to paint when he was just 7 years old. Around at the age of 13, he produced his first oil paintings, including the portraits of his family. He began to exhibit and sell his work on a small scale. On the same year, his 7-year-old sister died from diphtheria, which caused a traumatic event in his life, so the family moved to Barcelona. Picasso attended the School of Fine Arts in Barcelona, where his father taught art classes. His father persuaded the officials at the academy to allow his son to take an entrance exam for the advanced class. The process often took a student a month, but Picasso completed it only in a week. By the time when he was 16 years old, he was set out for the first time on his own. He quit the academy after getting bored with formal instruction and then moved to Madrid. At the age of 18, he left the college in Madrid and went to Paris with his best friend Carlos. Picasso's Blue Period, which lasted from 91 to 94, was a period of his art. During this period, Picasso painted primarily in blue tones with accents of other colors. The Old Guitarist, for example, is a well-known 1903 painting that includes a guitar in a warmer brown tones among the blue hues. Picasso's Blue Period's works are frequently perceived as gloomy due to their tone. From 1904 to 1906, the Rose Period lasts. Pink and rose hues give Picasso's art a warmer feel than his Blue Period paintings. Harlequins, clowns, and circus performers are among the recurring themes in his works. During the Rose Period, he created one of his best-selling works, Boy with a Pipe. Elements of primitivism in Rose Period's paintings reflect Picasso's art style experiment. Picasso created one of his most well-known and controversial works, Les Demoiselles d'Avignon, the Young Ladies of Avignon. During his African influence period, inspired by the Anglo-African art he saw in an exhibit at the Place de Trocadero and by an African mask owned by Henri Matisse. When Picasso first showed the Young Ladies of Avignon to his inner circle, Matisse was among the outspoken critics. The Young Ladies of Avignon, his first masterpiece, was controversial for its violent treatment of the female body. Picasso's portrait of 5 prostitutes is presented a new type of reality that deviated from Renaissance tradition, particularly in their use of perspective and illusion. Braque is the only artist to ever collaborate with Picasso in creating the beginnings of the Cubist movement in art. Their paintings utilize a palette of earth tones. The works depict disconstruct objects with complex geometric forms, and over a period of 2 years, they spent a lot of time together. In 1908, French critic Louis Vuitton used the term Cubism to describe Braque's landscape painting. The term was not widely used until 1911 when the press used it to describe the style. By 1912, Picasso had begun to incorporate words in the painting, which evolved into the collage elements that dominate the second era of Cubism, known as synthetic Cubism. This phase was also marked by the flattening of the subject and brightening of colors. He had taken Cubism further by gluing paper and other materials onto their canvas. Between 1917 and 1924, Picasso designed stage sets for the 5 ballets for Serge Diaghilev's Ballets Grasses. From 1912 to 1919, Picasso's work remained in the Cubist style, but the artist incorporated a new art form, collage, into some of his work. He also included the human form in many Cubist paintings, including Girl in a Mandolin and Majoli. Picasso spent the war years in his studio, despite the fact that many of the artists were getting called up for duty to fight in World War I. The World War I effectively halted Cubism as an urbanized movement. Picasso returned to injecting more realism into his paintings by 1917. Through his refusal to be pinned down mean, Cubism reappeared in some works over the years, such as The Three Musicians and The Weeping Woman. The Spanish Civil War inspired his most famous work, the massive Guernica, with its violent imagery condemning the useless destruction of life. Guernica was also his most powerful political statement, painted in response to the Nazis' devastating casual bombing practice on the Basque town of Guernica during the Spanish Civil War. Guernica was complete and quickly throughout the world, becoming famous and widely acclaimed. This tour helped bring the Spanish Civil War to the attention of the world. After the World War II, Picasso joined the Communist Party and devoted his time to sculpture, ceramics and lithography as well as painting. The Picasso art period extending from 1919 to 1929 featured a significant shift in his style. In the wake of his first visit to Italy and the conclusion of World War I, his paintings, such as The Peasant Sleeping, reflected a restoration of order in art. And his neoclassical artworks offer a stark contrast to his Cubist paintings. However, as the French Realist movement gained traction in the mid-1920s, Picasso began to create his painting in such Realist paintings as Three Dancers. Pablo Picasso, one of the most influential artists of the 20th century, frankly made stars to create entirely new interpretation of what he saw. I am always doing the things I can't do, but that's how I get to do them. Pablo Picasso.